For hundreds, even thousands of years, humans have told stories about strange and mysterious creatures. Giant monsters lurking in the depths of the ocean, terrifying beasts hiding beneath the earth, and legendary animals like the Loch Ness Monster that people claim to see, but never truly prove. Most of us think these stories are nothing more than myths. Just legends created to entertain, scare, or spark our imagination. But what if some of those monsters were actually real? Believe it or not, scientists have discovered fossils of creatures so strange, so bizarre, that they look like something straight out of a science fiction movie. From giant sea predators and fish with necks, to enormous sea scorpions the size of a vehicle. These creatures may sound like legends, but they once ruled the earth millions of years ago. So today we're going to explore 10 of the strangest prehistoric creatures that actually existed. And trust me, some of them are far more terrifying than any monster from mythology. Our first creature sounds like something that came straight out of a science fiction story, but it was actually real. It's called the Tully Monster. The story began in 1958, when a fossil collector named Francis Tully found a very strange fossil in Illinois, United States. When he showed the fossil to scientists, they were completely confused. The creature didn't resemble any known animal they had ever studied before. Its body was long and soft, almost like a worm. At the front of its body was a long tube-like proboscis that looked like a flexible straw. At the tip of that tube were small claw-like jaws used to grab prey. But the strangest feature of all was its eyes. Instead of being located on its head like most animals, the eyes were positioned at the ends of a long horizontal bar that stretched out from its body. The creature was only about 35 centimeters long, and scientists believe it lived around 300 million years ago. Because its anatomy is so unusual, researchers argued about its classification for decades. Some believed it might be related to worms, others thought it was closer to mollusks, and some scientists even suggested it could be an early form of fish. Even today, the Tullimonstrum gregarium remains one of the most mysterious fossils ever discovered, reminding us that life on Earth in the distant past was far stranger than we ever imagined. If the famous Tyrannosaurus rex was the king of the land, then Pliosaurus could easily be called the king of the ancient oceans. Pliosaurus was one of the most terrifying predators to ever swim in prehistoric seas. It lived around 150 million years ago during the Jurassic period, a time when enormous reptiles dominated both land and ocean. What makes this creature so impressive is its size. Scientists have discovered skulls that measure more than 2 meters long. From that skull alone, researchers estimate the entire animal could reach 12 to 13 meters in length. Its mouth was filled with massive teeth that could grow up to 30 centimeters long. These teeth were incredibly sharp and perfectly designed for tearing apart large prey. Pliosaurus had a powerful body shaped like a torpedo, along with 4 large flippers that allowed it to swim quickly and maneuver easily through the water. This made it a highly efficient hunter. But the most frightening thing about Pliosaurus may have been its bite. Some scientists estimate that its bite force could have been several times stronger than that of Tyrannosaurus rex, making it one of the most powerful biters in the history of the planet. With strength like that, Pliosaurus could hunt almost anything in the ocean: prehistoric sharks, giant squid, and even other large marine reptiles. In the ancient seas, very few creatures would have dared to challenge this massive predator. The next creature is Nothosaurus, a dangerous predator that lived during the Triassic period, around 240 million years ago. At first glance, Nothosaurus looked like a strange mix between a lizard, a crocodile, and a marine reptile. Its body was long and streamlined, with powerful limbs that allowed it to move both in water and on land. Most Nothosaurus individuals could grow up to 4 to 7 meters long, making them fairly large predators for their time. Unlike many fully aquatic marine reptiles, Nothosaurus likely spent part of its life near the shore. It could swim efficiently in the ocean, but it was also capable of crawling onto land, similar to how modern seals behave today. Its long, narrow snout was filled with sharp, needle-like teeth, perfect for catching slippery prey such as fish and squid. Scientists believe Nothosaurus hunted using an ambush strategy. It would quietly hide among rocks or near the seabed, waiting patiently for prey to swim by. Then, with a sudden burst of speed, it would strike and grab its victim with its long jaws. Fossils of Nothosaurus have been discovered across many parts of the world, including Europe, Asia, and North Africa, showing that this predator once ruled large areas of the ancient oceans. Although it may not have been the largest predator of its time, Nothosaurus was certainly one of the most efficient hunters in the early prehistoric seas. The next creature has a name that might sound like a giant dinosaur. But in reality it was something very different. This fascinating animal is called Basilosaurus. When its fossils were first discovered in the early 1800s, scientists believed it was a massive marine reptile. That's why it was given the name Basilosaurus, which means king lizard. However, later research revealed something surprising. Basilosaurus was not a reptile at all. It was actually an ancient whale, one of the early ancestors of modern whales. This creature lived around 40 million years ago during the Eocene epoch. It had a long, snake-like body that could reach up to 18 meters in length, and it weighed as much as 15 tons. Unlike many modern whales that feed on tiny organisms like plankton, Basilosaurus was a powerful predator. Its mouth was filled with sharp teeth designed for hunting large prey. Scientists believe it hunted fish, sharks, and even smaller whales. Fossil evidence suggests that Basilosaurus may have been one of the top predators of its time. Many fossils of Basilosaurus have been discovered in Egypt, in a famous area known as Wadi al-Haytan, which literally means Valley of the Whales. This place contains hundreds of ancient whale fossils, giving scientists an incredible look into the early evolution of whales. Basilosaurus shows us that the ancestors of today's peaceful ocean giants were once fierce hunters that ruled the prehistoric seas. When people hear the word scorpion, they usually imagine a small creature that can easily fit in the palm of a hand. But millions of years ago, scorpions existed that were far larger and far more terrifying. One of the biggest was Galopterus. Galopterus lived around 390 million years ago, long before the first dinosaurs appeared on Earth. It belonged to a group of ancient creatures called Eurypterids, often known as sea scorpions. Unlike modern scorpions that live on land, Galopterus lived in the water. Its body looked somewhat similar to today's scorpions, but its size was astonishing. Scientists estimate that Galopterus could grow up to 2.5 meters long, making it one of the largest arthropods that ever lived. It had a long armored body and large front claws used for grabbing prey. With its powerful limbs and strong pincers, this creature was a dangerous predator in the ancient seas. Galopterus likely hunted fish and other marine animals, catching them quickly with its large claws before tearing them apart. Fossils of this giant sea scorpion have been discovered in several parts of the world, especially in Europe. These discoveries show that Galopterus once ruled the waters as one of the most fearsome predators of its time. Thankfully, creatures like this disappeared from the oceans millions of years ago, long before humans ever appeared on Earth. The next creature may not look as terrifying as the others, but it is one of the most important animals in the history of evolution. Its name is Tiktaalik. Tiktaalik lived around 375 million years ago, during a time when most life still lived in the oceans. However, some animals were beginning to adapt to shallow waters and even explore land. What makes Tiktaalik so special is that it had features of both fish and land animals. Like a fish, it had scales, fins, and lived in water. But unlike most fish, Tiktaalik had something very unusual: it had a neck. This meant it could move its head independently from its body, something typical fish cannot do. Even more interesting, its fins were strong and contained bones similar to the early forms of arms and wrists. These fins likely allowed Tiktaalik to push itself up in shallow water or muddy environments. Fossils of Tiktaalik were discovered in 2004 on Ellesmere Island, located in northern Canada. Today that region is extremely cold and frozen, but hundreds of millions of years ago it was a warm, shallow ecosystem filled with life. Because of its unique anatomy, Tiktaalik is considered one of the best examples of a transitional species, a creature that shows how life slowly evolved from aquatic animals into the first land-dwelling vertebrates. In other words, animals like Tiktaalik helped pave the evolutionary path that eventually led to amphibians, reptiles, mammals, and ultimately humans. The next creature might look like something from an alien planet. Its name is Opabinia, and it lived around 500 million years ago during the Cambrian period. This was a time when life in the oceans was rapidly evolving, producing some of the strangest creatures that have ever existed. Opabinia was relatively small, only about 7 centimeters long, but its appearance was extremely unusual. The most striking feature was its 5 eyes, all positioned on top of its head. This likely gave it a wide field of vision to detect movement in the water. Even stranger was its long, flexible proboscis, a trunk-like appendage extending from the front of its head. At the tip of this trunk was a small claw-like structure that it used to grab food from the ocean floor. Its body had several segments along the sides, each with small flaps that helped it swim slowly through the water. At the back, it had a fan-shaped tail that helped with steering. Fossils of Opabinia were first discovered in the famous Burgess Shale in Canada, one of the most important fossil sites in the world. When scientists first revealed Opabinia to the public in the early 1900s, many people thought its reconstruction looked so bizarre that it almost seemed unbelievable. But today, Opabinia is recognized as one of the most fascinating examples of how strange and experimental early life on Earth once was. The next creature is Orthoceras, an ancient marine animal that lived around 400 million years ago. At first glance, Orthoceras looked very different from most creatures in the ocean. Its most distinctive feature was its long, straight shell, which could sometimes grow over 2 meters in length. The shell had a shape that almost looked like a rocket or a spear. The shell was not just for protection. Inside the shell were chambers filled with gas that allowed Orthoceras to control its buoyancy. By adjusting the amount of gas in these chambers, it could move up or down in the water. Orthoceras belonged to a group of animals called cephalopods, which means it was related to modern creatures like squids, octopuses, and nautiluses. Hidden inside the shell was a soft body with tentacles that it used to catch prey. These tentacles allowed Orthoceras to capture small marine animals such as fish, crustaceans, and other tiny creatures swimming nearby. Fossils of Orthoceras have been discovered in many parts of the world, including Europe, North Africa, and Asia, showing that this animal was once widespread in ancient oceans. For millions of years, Orthoceras was one of the dominant predators in the seas, quietly hunting beneath the waves long before dinosaurs ever appeared on Earth. The next creature is a very unusual prehistoric shark known as Stethacanthus. This strange shark lived around 300 million years ago, long before many of the sharks we know today evolved. At first glance, Stethacanthus looked somewhat similar to a typical shark. However, it had one extremely unusual feature that made it stand out from all other sharks. Instead of a normal dorsal fin, the males had a large flat structure on their backs that looked almost like an ironing board or anvil. On top of this structure were thousands of tiny tooth-like scales called denticles. Scientists are still not completely certain why this structure existed. One popular theory suggests that it may have been used during mating displays, helping males attract females. Another possibility is that the unusual fin made it harder for predators to bite or swallow them. Despite its strange appearance, Stethacanthus was still an effective hunter. Like other sharks, it likely fed on small fish, crustaceans, and other marine animals. Even today, Stethacanthus remains one of the most unusual sharks ever discovered, reminding us how strange prehistoric oceans once were. The final creature on our list is another terrifying giant from the ancient oceans. It is called Pterygotus. Pterygotus lived around 400 million years ago, long before dinosaurs ever walked the earth. It belonged to a group of prehistoric arthropods known as eurypterids, often referred to as sea scorpions. But unlike the small scorpions we see today, Pterygotus was enormous. Some species could grow up to 2.5 meters long, making them one of the largest arthropods that ever existed. Its body was long and armored, and at the front it had large powerful claws that were perfect for grabbing prey. These claws likely helped it capture fish and other marine animals swimming through the ancient seas. Pterygotus also had large compound eyes, giving it excellent vision for spotting movement in the water. Scientists believe this creature was an ambush predator. It would hide near the bottom of the ocean or in murky water, waiting patiently for prey to pass by. Then, in a sudden burst of speed, it would strike and seize its victim with its massive claws. Although creatures like Pterygotus disappeared hundreds of millions of years ago, their terrifying appearance continues to inspire monsters in movies, video games, and science fiction. And they remind us that the ancient oceans of Earth were once home to creatures far more bizarre, and sometimes far more frightening, than anything we see today. And those were 10 of the strangest prehistoric creatures that actually existed on Earth. Some of them even look like monsters straight out of a science fiction movie. It just shows that life in the distant past was far stranger and more incredible than we could ever imagine. So, which creature do you think was the most terrifying? Let me know your answer in the comments below. And I'll see you in the next video.